Are you struggling to make your business stand out? Join us today as we uncover the journey of Bo Koonce, founder of Pinpoint, a unique barcade that combines retro games and trendy drinks to create a unique experience. This is the Startup Junkies podcast. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to another episode of the Startup Junkies podcast. Thank you for tuning in from wherever and however you're tuning in from. My name is Daniel Koonce, and I'm joined today by my co-hosts Harrison Kitson and Jeff Amerine. Harrison, Jeff, how are we doing?
Fantastic. Glad to be here.
Wonderful. How are you?
I'm doing well myself. Well, we're joined here today with our new friend, old friend as well.
Absolutely.
That's right. New and old.
New and old.
A
new
refreshed,
to some,
a refreshed
to others.
friend today.
He's a Startup Junkies podcast alum, back for a second go-round.
It's been a while. How long has it been?
It's been since June 2020.
So you did your research.
And
Nice.
we had
It's a test.
you tag team with the Wicked Chocolate guy, which
he's great.
We could rerun that and probably get better ratings.
Did y'all record that? Because that was a good time.
It's recorded, and it was awesome. It's awesome. It's somewhere. We'll have to look in the archives.
To finish this very long-winded introduction, we have Bo Koonce, the founder of Pinpoint. Bo, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great, man. It's a lovely day. It's nice and breezy. Here with some friends. Got a couple of sips in front of me. It's a good time.
Yeah, awesome. Well, you've been here before, but we have a lot of new listeners, a couple new hosts. Give us the elevator pitch for Pinpoint.
Wow. So Pinpoint was a weird idea that I had many years ago. Everybody knows a bar. That's not a new concept by any stretch of the imagination. But, drinking doesn't have to be the only thing, right? You need places that have activities that aren't just, I'm out of drink, I need another drink. So I thought that we would do something that was more geared toward experiences, but not just the same old pool and, darts and stuff that you see in a lot of other bars. I leaned into pinball and it was something that I didn't have any insider magic knowledge. I had no idea that after the pandemic, pinball was going to blow up globally again into a huge industry that is just taking over leaps and bounds. But I got ahead of that curve, and we're the only pinball cocktail bar in Arkansas. Yeah,
that's awesome.
Yeah,
were you a particularly big pinball fan, or is it just pretty random?
Growing up, it was one of those things that you had a fascination with. Like pinball was never designed for kids. Like we get the question all the time, like, "Can my kids come?" And I'm like, "No, it's a bar, and we're all drinking, and we don't want them there." But number two, they can't even see over the glass. Like they're designed for adults. And in fact, if you go back into pinball history, it was pretty illegal for kids under the age of 18 to even play pinball up until like the 70s. And it was pinball just as a blanket statement was illegal in many states for a very long time because it was often mob associated at speakeasies. They were seen as gambling devices. There's a really famous court ruling back in the 70s that determined that it was in a game of skill, not a game of chance. But that's a different podcast. And it was a really fascinating world. And when I was originally coming up with the plan, it didn't have anything to do with pinball. We were supposed to have a kitchen in there, but building a kitchen in a 109-year-old basement wasn't really City of Fayetteville code friendly. And then I'm like, I got 3,800 square feet to fill up. What am I going to do? And I'd been collecting pinballs as a hobby. And I said, well, let's just fill the space with these games and kind of rebrand before we open. And the rest is history.
Now, where does somebody find a pinball machine, and how did you manage to find that many?
Well, nowadays, there are manufacturers making them brand new. Like a lot of the places that you see, because pinball bars are now starting to pop up all across the country. But when you go in, you start to kind of see the same 10, 15 games. Like Stern's the number one manufacturer in pinball in the world. They're making 2 or 3 games a year. You've got Jersey Jack, you've got Spooky Pinball, you've got American Pinball. And these are all companies, a lot of them are newer companies. And you can buy them brand new out of the box, order them from a distributor like you'd order a arcade machine at Dave & Buster's. It comes delivered on a pallet, you hook it up, yada, yada, yada. But those vintage games, that's a little bit harder. You got to get on Facebook Marketplace, Craigslist, have a friend of a friend of a friend whose grandpa has one in their basement, or, just these weird word of mouth, community driven connections that, when you have a bar is a really good place to make those. I just got back from Eureka Springs a couple days ago and found 2 games that were in this lady's house. Her husband had passed away. And oddly enough, we were mentioned in his will. And he's like, if, I pass and you need something fixed on these or you want to sell them, here's the guy to call. And I went up and we bought those games from that lady. Actually, we traded some games, and it's a weird community.
Yeah. How much do these machines usually cost you?
Average right now is about $10,000 to $12,000
Oh, wow.
for one
Wow.
machine, and we've got 72 of them. You can do the reverse math on that.
Wow.
And some of the older ones, like a fully restored vintage, say like Funhouse, that's a classic, about $9,000. Addams Family, $10,000. You find, if you're lucky, you can find some in the like $4,000 and $5,000 range that are like fixer uppers. And that's what I like to look for because I know how to repair and restore them myself. So you can find them in bad condition. You can get a good deal, fix them up, and then they're ready to go.
Yeah, that's awesome. I don't want to necessarily do a carbon copy of the first time we had you on a couple years ago. So I kind of want to build on that episode. During your elevator pitch almost 5 years ago, you said, we don't sell pinball or cocktails. We sell togetherness and experience.
And that hasn't changed. In fact, I'd say we're a lot more known for that now than we were even then because of our holiday experiences that we do. Our Nightmare on Block Street Halloween event it's nationally known. We were mentioned in Food and Wine this past year as one of the top Halloween bar destinations in the country.
Wow.
Our Christmas event, Christmas at Pinpoint, we are the holiday bar in Arkansas.
Yeah.
It's been so crazy to see the growth of those themed events, and we're actually opening up and expanding into April. We piloted an event last year called Lost Souls. So think tropical, lack of a better term, tiki drinks. But theming it all like kind of sunken under the sea, nautical monsters and ghost pirates, and Lost Souls is the theme of that. And we did it for a week in April, and it was a lot of fun and everyone loved it. So we're going to bring it back this April and expand it and make it bigger and more immersive this year.
Wow. So it's barely changed the experience then.
It's so much experience.
Yeah.
And the vibes are everything, because you can get a pour of bourbon or a Miller Lite at the grocery store. Like that's not something that's really exotic. I mean, a well-made cocktail is still a very well-made cocktail, and you can try to do it at home, but a lot of times you'll find like, man, this was a lot more expensive and a lot harder than I thought, But at the end of the day, you can replicate those at home if you're willing to do the work, but the experience of going to a really great curated place, that's what you're paying for.
So the experience sounds like it hasn't changed much since last time you came on the podcast. Do you guys still have the same kind of marketing strategy of just word of mouth?
Yeah, and that's kind of an odd one. And I think it has to do with the fact that Northwest Arkansas is a very peculiar market. My background, I have a very odd background. I don't know if we touched on it in the last episode, but I come from the film background. I was a field producer for Discovery Channel for like 6 years. I mean, I've seen a lot of the country and a lot of major markets, and I worked for one of the most powerful media corporations on the planet, and I got a lot of perspective of what works in other markets and what doesn't. In Northwest Arkansas, it's one of the reasons it made me want to stay here. It's an extremely unique market, and it has unique problems and it has unique benefits that are unlike anywhere I've ever seen. And here, just getting your word out all over the place is not always the best thing to do, because we have a very diverse and eclectic group of people and a perception of the bar industry that is not the same as other places in the country. A cocktail bar in, New York, Chicago, Austin, like LA, you pick one of those towns, you think, oh, going out and drinking is an adult thing to do. We're going to have a business meeting. We're going to go have some cocktails. In Northwest Arkansas, only in the past 5 years, I still encounter guests today where I'm go, hey, have you visited this bar on Block? Well, I'm too old to go out. That's not us anymore. We don't party like we used to. And I go, I didn't say go party. I didn't say go punch drywall and vomit at the end of the night. I said go out and have a drink and socialize and be with your friends. And that's a unique market problem. Yeah. And it's because we don't have a very, we're getting there as a market, a metropolitan idea set of the entertainment side of alcohol. And that has really helped post-COVID, I think, because people are curious about spirits. But it's one of the reasons we try to keep that party customer out of our bar, because we want to curate an adult experience. Yeah. So if you just talk about all the amazing things we have at Pinpoint to everyone, then you get everyone. And then you have to kind of figure out how to handle them at the end of the day. But if you really target in your message to the people that you really want to be your base customer. Then when those party people find out about it, they kind of have to come in and adhere to the status quo.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And they're coming there for the experience of having a couple of great drinks.
Yeah.
Spending some time talking, enjoying the pinball. They're not coming to hammer down 15,
and we do not encourage that. Yeah.
tequila shots.
Absolutely not.
Yeah. I've partied there before. Not hard, but I've had several.
It's easy to do.
It's easy to do.
It's easy to do.
Those, you mentioned your Christmas and Halloween.
Mhm.
Your guys' peppermint mocha espresso martini was maybe the best mixed drink I've ever had in my life. Game changer.
And you had 15 of them, or you just had
I probably had 4 or 5 of them.
Okay.
Yeah.
I spent a lot of money.
Heck yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. You're welcome.
Thank you for your patronage. And it's one of those things is how can we continue to push the envelope of craft cocktail bars, and we do something, I travel to cocktail conferences all over the country all the time.
Can you get me an invite to those?
Tales of the Cocktail.
I'm assuming there's cocktails served there.
It floweth.
Oh, fantastic.
It's a good assumption.
One of my favorites is Tales of the Cocktail. It's at the end of July in New Orleans, and it's bar professionals and brands ambassadors from all over the world. And you really get to share industry secrets, talk about market trends, and a lot of people think that because they go into a bar and they're having a good time and cutting loose, that it's not a really professional business. And sure, there are those bars that exist where it's like beer pong in the corner, Miller Lite. You don't remember most of the night. You go home, maybe you peed on the floor, ew, whatever. But for the most of the industry, like you walk into a liquor store and there's like bottles that are $200, $300. And you're like, well, where are those going?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And there is a huge, very professional market. And we all share these stories and we all share ideas and trends. And like say that peppermint mocha espresso martini, that was not just something we said, wouldn't this be tasty? It was a lot of thoughts of like, okay, the trends are espresso martini is outpaced the margarita in terms of the most popular cocktail in the United States. Year over year, it's going on 2-year champ. It used to be Mule was up there at the top, then it's margarita. Old Fashioned had its time in the limelight, but now it's espresso martini. And we're like, okay, if we know people are going to come in there, we know we're going to make them. Let's take it a step further. Let's make it still approachable. Let's make it holiday. We'll have our A version, which is the classic, but then we'll do a holiday twist on it. And then we prepared, in fact, spending thousands of dollars on nitro draft technology to make it to where we can get those out consistently and quicker to that customer that you're going to have 15 of them, like you said. So it's like, we knew you were coming and we had to think months in advance to prepare for you. And that's what I love about this business is it's so much more than, we're just making a fun drink for people and you're going to have a good time. It is like, there's data, there is anticipation, there is market research, there's all this crazy stuff that goes into the bar business when you're really selling experience.
And just like every other business.
I'd love to know a little bit more about that. Like, what does that market research look like and how is your time spent finding those?
Talk about the trends too.
Yeah, I'd love to know
part
more
of all
of
that.
So,
I know it's a challenging market.
Like
right now.
any industry, there's conventions, there's trade show, there's publications. Ours are a lot more fun than probably some of yours that you're listening at home. It's like, Oil Investors Weekly, I'm sure is an engaging read. But like Chilled magazine is a really great read. Imbibe magazine is a great read. These people are going out to all of these different markets, small and large, and finding what's selling, finding what people are buying, what the forecast is looking like in terms of yield of, bourbon barrels, because, this stuff is aged 5, 6, 7, sometimes 15 years.
Yep.
And you really have to think about like what's going to happen in the market. Let's say, Dickel or Heaven Hill or, Brown-Forman, which is a big company. They just did a lot of layoffs, closed their American coopery, which is huge news because coopery, for those of you that don't know, is where they make barrels that age bourbon. And for a long time, Jack Daniel's manufactured their own barrels. They do not anymore. That's big news. But we're really not going to see what that's going to be for at least 5 years because that product's not going to hit market for 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
So you kind of have to look back. And, I've visited a lot of distilleries in Kentucky and talked to, I've got a trip planned to Mexico to visit some tequila farms and find out what they're doing, what they did 3 years ago that is going to hit market next year. or what Brown-Forman did 6 years ago that are going to be their experimental 7-year releases this year. And you can say, okay, well, there's about to be a whole bunch of like maple flavored whatever, or coffee barreled or brandy barreled. And so if you can get ahead of that, you can kind of hopefully predict what people are going to be into instead of just going to the store and spending $5,000 on a liquor order of like, guess who. You can kind of anticipate, because booze is expensive. And you're like, okay, well, now I'm going to laser it in and get ahead of these trends so that when you eventually like see on TikTok, like, oh man, this particular drink is blowing up. We already knew you were going to see that. And we've got that. You can come to our bar and we got it for you.
Are you an entrepreneur or an aspiring entrepreneur looking to get plugged into the ecosystem? We host a ton of events designed for education, inspiration, and collaboration, from weekly meetups to quarterly events like pitch competitions and annual events like our marquee event, the Startup Crawl, which is the largest startup party in Arkansas. Check out our event page on our website, sign up, and we'll see you there.
So would you say that the vast majority of the decisions you're making in terms of operations, are they following those trends? Or are you ever taking a big risk with any of the things that you're doing?
I think any innovative business is about taking big risks. I mean, you know, if you're always doing what everybody else is doing, then, you know, I mean, that's the definition of risk averse. But, you know, in the spirits game, one of the greatest things about it that's different than, say, like food, if we're just keeping it hospitality, is you're not fighting your product as much. You know, you're not like buying, oh, our oyster's going to be in the season. Let's go all in and develop a relationship with these. And then as soon as we spend $1,000 on this week oyster haul and we got to sell them, oh my gosh, because they're going bad tomorrow. You know, I buy some 7-year Dickel and it's going to be like, oh, well, it might not be popular right now, but it's going to be fine as long as I have somewhere to store it for a while.
Yeah.
And I can get creative and find ways to use that product. Or, you know, if that trend didn't pop the way you thought it would, then save it for the next time, you know, and you can cross build a lot better. Like for our holiday menu, for example, we really have to laser in on what our inventory is going to look like for a season, because we've got 7 weeks of holiday that we do. And we have to we order so much that we will deplete the state's allocation of certain spirits. Because if you know anything about liquor world, the world, it's allocated state by state because it's still a federally controlled substance. So, for example, people go, why can't I get a bottle of Blanton's? It's like, well, Arkansas only got 3 cases of Blanton's. That's it, and that's all.
And you have them all.
Well, I can't have them all. I can get my allocated amount,
yeah,
you know?
got it.
But let's say I was using, there's a good example. There's a spirit, maybe you've seen it at a bar. It's called Galliano. It's in the tall yellow bottle. And it's always up there in the corner getting dusty. Everybody's like, who drinks that? What is that? Most people don't know what it is. And for, it was a Halloween, I put Galliano in one of our drinks, and it turned out to be an extremely popular drink. So I was ordering Galliano, literally multiple cases at a time. And the distributor was like, is this a joke? Like, no one orders this much Galliano. And they're like, we don't have this much Galliano. Like, and they're not sending us anymore until next month. What do we do? You know, because I can't just go to Missouri and get it or buy it online because bootlegging, federally controlled substance.
Right.
It's another interesting layer of the alcohol industry. We can't just outsource to other states.
Yeah.
You know, and that's again, it peels back that layer of, this is a lot harder than it sounds.
Yeah.
You know, and if you're not thinking about it months or quarters or seasons in advance, then you're really dead in the water.
It's a lot like fashion in some ways, in that there's things that come into vogue that are of interest and it changes. We've seen craft beer, the interest in craft beer going down. Same a little bit with wine going down. Where do you see it all going, and how? And you've talked a little bit about how you stay ahead of it, but talk about it kind of at a macro level as an entrepreneur.
Well, if you want the Bo Counts prediction, some people call me Boastrodonics.
Please, because, and also in general, you've got the whole thing towards people are thinking, well, alcohol, maybe I want to limit it because it's not the healthiest thing. Talk about where it's all going.
And that has been something that, you know, the funny thing that people that have been drinking at Pinpoint for a while or been regulars at Pinpoint for a while, they have started to clue in, because we've been there since, you know, about 2017. And they're like, man, stuff that y'all stopped doing is what's now being popular. You know, we're always about a year or so ahead of the trends. And it's because I go out there and I'm doing all this research and I try to bring that stuff here. And being, you know, I hate using the term trendsetter, especially when I'm talking about myself, but when you're trying to innovate and push the envelope and be a trendsetter, it doesn't always work immediately. A lot of times the thing with trends is trends aren't intrinsically popular because what that thing is inherently good. And if you're presented with it, you're like, this is good and this is what I want. Trends sometimes become trends because everybody you know is doing it, right? Mm-hmm. And there's a bit of that sort of like, let me look around the room. And if everybody's doing it, I'm going to do it too. And if it just also happens to be good, then bonus. A lot of people don't want to be the sort of ambassador of going, hey guys, I know you don't know what this is, but it's good. Trust me on it. And they're like, I don't want to try that. So when you're anticipating trends, it's hard to be a trendsetter because sometimes you know it's good. You know it's going to be the thing. Like we were doing non-alcoholic cocktails 4.5 years ago. We had a dry January menu and everybody goes, what? Why would I pay for a non-alcoholic cocktail? And I go, well, because, some people don't want alcohol. And I think the studies are coming out that people are going to want a different experience, maybe not have to go out and drink. You're like, you're crazy. What was one of the biggest growing categories in the market last year? Non-alcoholic cocktails.
Yep.
And we were ahead of that game so that now, like, people just know us for having a dry January menu. Like all our house cocktails were non-alcoholic in January. And people know that. So we already had it took about 2 years of trying to like hammer it into people and going, hey, this is it. And they go, oh, you're dumb. Go, just wait a second. And then now people like go, oh yeah, we already know. So when the time that trend hit, they knew exactly where to go. Mm-hmm. And it's a really interesting thing to watch because we've done it over and over and over. Pinball was another one of those things. When I opened up Pinpoint, people said, pinball? What's that? Mm-hmm. Why are you wasting your time in that? And now people are like, hey, where's the pinball place in my city?
Yeah.
But when I opened that bar, everybody was like, I've never heard of that. Why would you do that? Didn't pinball die 20 years ago? Mm-hmm. I'm like, but it's awesome.
Yeah, and we're seeing that, also be a theme just in general. And vintage retro is coming back. At Pinpoint, and you're bringing pinball back in 2017.
Familiar things.
Yeah, now people,
familiar things.
Thrift clothes, vinyls and record players, all coming back.
Going back to Jeff's initial question is that how do you anticipate those? And that's my guess for the upcoming next trend is we're leaning back familiar. And I kind of predicted this a little bit at the beginning of the pandemic, because one of the things that you notice in the spirits and hospitality world, just in general, is people get a lot less adventurous with their food and beverage when they're a little less confident in, I guess, the economy overall, or if they're trying to conserve spending. When you work in a bar or a restaurant, you overhear a lot of conversations that people are having. Like, yes, we're listening to you. We're not going to spread your secrets, but we are listening to you. We hear you. Right. And we are humans. A lot of people think that we're not, but we're there. And you kind of, you get a real raw human experience gauge of what people are talking about and, what their background is and what their problems are and what they're excited about or what they're upset about. And when people get fearful for their budgets, entertainment's always the first thing to get cut.
Sure.
I mean, everybody knows that. But they start to, when they do go back to entertain themselves, they lean to the familiar. They lean to the ones that are the surefire bets. And when COVID hit, I said, we're going to start seeing a resurgence in the tacky 90s cocktails that are just kind of sugar bombs. They're approachable. I said Long Island iced tea, espresso martinis, like lemon drops, things like this are going to make a huge come. Where are we at? Where are we at right now? Espresso martini and lemon drops are huge again right now. And I think that we're going to see, craft beer. I anticipated the decline in cider once the invention of seltzer came out, because that cider drinker tends to be that person that doesn't want beer, but doesn't want a cocktail, but wants something a little sweet. But then when seltzers came up, they had a lot of options that weren't just apple. And so you saw cider just plummet once seltzers hit the market. And that was like, I don't know why everyone acted surprised. I'm like, duh. Just look at the trends, look at the consumer behavior and what they're wanting when they make that choice, then you can predict it. Same with the non-alcoholic seltzers that are the CBD THC drinks. We're finding those non-alcoholic cocktail drinkers are leaning now towards THC CBD drinks because they're easier and they still get a buzz. And if you look at that, you can predict that. And my prediction is a lot of people that I've seen, they're a little nervous about their, insurance is expensive, rent is expensive, utilities are expensive. It's expensive right now. Mm-hmm. Eggs are expensive. Yeah. We can't even make a good whiskey sour right now without an egg. That's expensive. So people are like, well, let me lean towards that mule. Let me lean towards that old fashioned. Let me lean to that espresso martini that I know I'm going to like. If I'm going to be spending $10 to $15 for this drink, it better be something I love.
So are you saying that my grandma is becoming cool because she only drinks gin and tonics? Is that kind of...
Hell yeah. Is she from the UK?
Yes.
Yeah, well, I send her my love because I wish more people in the United States would love gin and tonics because gin is
a classic drink.
It's such a classic drink. And gin is such a bad word in the US. Most people...
Why?
Well, and I think it goes back to the United States sort of relationship with alcohol. Mm-hmm. It's so taboo until you're 21, and then there's this reckless abandon,
right?
That you just like go, it's taboo, 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 and now I'm going to drown myself in it. And you don't learn quality. That's why you see some of these 40-year-old, 50-year-old customers that are still drinking the same thing they drink in college because they had some bad experiences. They found one thing. Yeah. And then they just...
I need my Bush beer. Where's my Keystone?
Or a dirty vodka martini. And I'm like, you don't even like that drink, but you've trained yourself to like that drink.
Yeah.
And fear of spending money on something that they're not going to enjoy keeps them from exploring new flavors. And gin is one of those things. And I ask people all the time, why not? And they go, well, and it always starts when I was in college. And it's probably some gut rot gin that they got dirt cheap somewhere and just drank it straight, which I don't recommend. And then they just had a really terrible time with it. And they didn't know how to appreciate that spirit, how to use it in a sentence. They say, it's like, can you use that word in a sentence? Well, with certain spirits, it's like,
gin and tonic.
Do you know how to make it in a cocktail?
Lime.
Oh, it's so good.
It's delicious.
Awesome. It's so good. And
it's one of the easiest things to drink. It
has to be good.
And it's good for you. It's good for you. You won't get malaria.
Is that how that works?
That's why they invented it, right? Because evidently the quinine.
The quinine. Yeah, that's what
I have to put a warning on this podcast now. By the way, gin does not kill malaria.
India Pale Ale and gin and tonic came from time in the subcontinent.
Because the bittering agent, the bark of the quinine tree, it has a lot of those properties that.
It's medicinal.
It's medicinal. Yeah. And so actually, if you want to turn this into a very nerdy like chemistry podcast, a lot of spirits actually came and survived through time because they were ways to preserve herbs.
That's right.
That were used in medicines, because if you put them on a shelf, they would wither or wilt or mold. And if you dried them, it lose their potency. But when you distilled them, it retained a lot of that potency of that herb. But then they also had an alcoholic byproduct, and people started drinking them recreationally around the time, the time of Prohibition. One of the only ways that people could get certain spirits into their home is through their pharmacists. Mm-hmm. That's where Peychaud's bitters comes from. Is Dr. Peychaud was an apothecary, and his bitters, which are now used in almost every, like the Sazerac cocktail, was medicine in Prohibition. And so people would come there to get their prescriptions because it did have healing properties back in those days. And chartreuse, another great example, great history lesson. But that's
so you're saying Joe Kennedy was really a pharmacist?
He was really a pharmacist.
It's like Shane Gillis on SNL we were talking about yesterday. He was prescribing a couple of beers on the thing. Which is,
that's right.
Yes. Maybe he was right. Maybe he was
right. I mean, I drink a good prescription.
I drink 3 Underbergs a week, like clockwork, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday for medicinal purposes. Yeah. I'm telling you. I haven't been sick more than a sniffle in probably 3 years.
Harrison drinks 20 beers every Saturday night for medicinal
When's the last time you were sick?
Yesterday.
That's a byproduct of all the beers.
It was all the beers, yeah. I'm still not feeling 100%, by the way.
You need some herbal beers. We need to get you on some of that medicine.
Oh, yeah. So the tequila and Coke and pizza and stuff, that probably wasn't the way to go. That wasn't very medicinal, no.
Yeah, I didn't know that tequila and Diet Coke and pizza were ever a combination.
Yeah, if you go back in history in 1889.
Well, we've talked about, last 5 years, your experience at Pinpoint, it's been pretty much the same. 5 years down the line, what does it look like?
That's a really good question. Right now I'm in the works of partnering with a couple of guys in Bentonville. We're opening up a restaurant, champagne bar, right now. Hopefully that's going to be online in the next couple of months.
Nice.
Look for that down the road. It's called Muselé. It'll be over there by the Momentary. Renovations are already happening as we speak. So we're excited about that. But in terms of Pinpoint, and here's a weird, not to take it on a somber note, but I've wanted to do multiple locations of Pinpoint, but right now that the way commercial real estate market is, price per square foot does not.
It's brutal.
It's not conducive to something like Pinpoint because these pinball machines require a lot of square footage, and we're only charging $1.50 to play these $10,000 machines, right? And that sort of, you put it into a math problem. It's like, okay, well, here's our revenue stream from these. How much revenue are we generating per square foot to justify the rent versus the piece of equipment we need to put on that? So right now it's like, well, all plans to kind of make a second Pinpoint have been put on hold until the real estate market, has a reality check, because it's just kind of wild right now.
Mm-hmm. Well, we kind of like to ask the plane question. When we had you on in 2020, we asked you to get on in a time machine and give your younger self some advice. And you said, don't be afraid to push yourself into the unknown. Don't be afraid to follow what makes you happy. If you had to go back to yourself in 2020, what advice would you give him?
I would high five him and be like, damn right. Like, I was a genius then. I'm a genius. No, that is such good advice, man.
You sound like Kanye West.
Why? No.
Am I not supposed to say?
Hey, have you seen my sneaker brand?
No, not in that way.
But it's Beezus now. Not Yeezus. But no, I'd have to say that's still really great advice. Like, don't. I would, looking back, there are definitely things I would do differently, but, I would say that I have taken that mantra and ran with it, and I'm not just doing it within my walls, but I'm pushing the city of Fayetteville. I'm on the board for the Downtown Fayetteville Coalition. Mm-hmm. I help consult a lot of people, local businesses all the time, hit me up, and I try to guide them in certain ways. And I still follow that same mantra. It's, you can't be afraid to push the envelope. And a lot of times, a lot of people are too afraid to ask hard questions, too afraid to hold people accountable, or just even ask who's accountable. Because what I have discovered in the 8-9 years or whatever that I've been running businesses and doing all this kind of stuff, well, it's almost 15 years, think of it that way. But a lot of people don't know what they don't know. And until someone kind of shines a light on it, then nobody really knows. And it's no fault of anybody at the table. You can't be like, well, my city leader or my whatever didn't do this because of X, Y, and Z. Well, it's like, well, did you tell them to? Like, did you bring it up at a meeting? Did you make it a point? Because maybe they didn't know. Maybe they were just doing their day-to-day and went home and watched season 2 of Severance and then had dinner with their family. like we all do, And I think I would say, in addition to that, like, give people a little grace, and understand that we're all just people going through life with the skill set that we have. And we don't all have the answers to everything. Like, we're all really smart people in very different ways. And when you start thinking that you're smarter than everybody, that's when the mistakes get made. Because you're not listening to all of these amazing 100%. Humans and their lifetime of experiences. And if we all just shared and collaborated a little bit more and like know when to stop, know when to listen, and then know when to like share, then we could all succeed a lot more. And I guess that would be another, like, moving down, just don't be afraid to collaborate. I mean, be wary of it. Don't give it all away for free. But I think we've pushed ourselves too far in a sort of business is business mentality. And we use that phrase as a justification for wrongdoing. I think anybody that uses the phrase business is business says it because they know they did something wrong. And it's a shield to be like, well, don't blame me, blame business. I'm like, well, you kind of made the decision and you say,
Yeah.
But I think if we learn to collaborate a lot better, then a lot of our problems that we see will just inevitably go away on their own.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Good advice.
Yeah.
Good advice.
Well, if our audience wants to learn more about you or about Pinpoint, where should they go?
Well, my name is Bo Koonce. There's not many of me, so you can Google me.
Spell Bo for us.
BOCOUNTS. Really easy guy to find. I'm on television, KNWA, every week on Later on Saturday nights after the news. I help co-host Good Day NWA on what channel is that? Sometimes about 3 or 4 times a month on Good Day NWA. Excuse me.
Channel 51.
I have the Drive-In Speaker Box podcast available wherever it is you find your podcast, or live streamed every week on Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook. You can find me at pinpointfayetteville.com. Our Instagram, social media, Nightmare on Block Street, Pinpoint Fayetteville. I mean, I'm out there.
He's like Pitbull. He's freaking worldwide.
Yeah.
I'm gonna need you to send me over all those socials after that, so you can.
Okay, it's a list.
Yeah, right. Yeah. I'll get a list from you later. Then.
Heck yeah.
Awesome.
Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for coming on. Bill.
Thanks for
awesome.
having me. Appreciate it.
It's always good to catch up.
Right.
Great stuff.
If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to share with a friend. Subscribe and review because it matters to us and we want to hear from you. If you're interested in learning how to work with us, check out the information below. See you next week.